Hey friend, welcome and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome. I give lighthearted reviews and recaps of some of my favorite TV shows and movies. So if this is something that interests you, consider sticking around. I have a lot more content coming to my channel and I'm so glad you're here. So with that being said, let's get to it, y'all. All right, y'all. We are back with a new episode of The Gilded Age. This is season 3, episode 2. This one is called What the Papers Say, and I absolutely love this episode. I love this show. Let's just go ahead and get into it. So, the episode picks up where it left off. We have the next morning, and we have the ladies' maids and all of the other staff at the Russell's house searching the house looking for Miss Gladys, honey. She is nowhere to be found. So they wake up Larry. Larry goes in to tell Bertha, and she's just like, "Oh my God, did she elope?" I mean, that's the first thing that comes out of her mouth. And it's like, how about is she okay? So as she's starting to get dressed and everything, she's asking Larry, "Hey, did you know anything? Did you hear from her?" And he's like, "Nope, don't know a thing." At that point, somebody walks in and gives her a note. And Larry's like, "Well, what did the note say?" She's like, "It just says where she's at." So if I was a betting woman, I would bet that she went over to Billy's house, but Bertha never says. I mean, it's all Bertha's fault anyway. She should feel bad about it, but I'm sure she's going to go and make a scene over here at Billy Carlton's home. Let's hope she doesn't. All right, if you guys remember last episode, Peggy had a really, really bad cold or the flu. We find out that it is pneumonia, and we see that the Scots are headed to Manhattan. They arrive from Brooklyn. They go to see Peggy. They get out, and Mr. Scott's walking up the front steps to the door while Mrs. Scott is going around the corner to the servants' entrance. And he's like, "What are you doing? Why are you going that way?" And Mrs. Scott's attitude is like, "Listen, just let's just do what they expect us to do. Let's just not cause any issues." And Mr. Scott's like, "No, bump that. We were invited. We're going up the stairs and we're going to knock on the door and be invited in just like any other guest. And I kind of see both ways of it. It was just a peculiar time, just awkwardness going on. And so Mrs. Scott actually is getting ready to join her husband on the stairs. But just as she's doing that, we see another car pull up, and it's the doctor. So we see that the Scotts have invited their doctor to come to check on Peggy because remember, Agnes and Ada had a doctor that came last week, but that doctor wouldn't see Peggy because of the color of her skin. So anyway, they've got their doctor and they're greeted in. Now, downstairs, of course, we see Armstrong. We know that she's a racist. And so she's talking about the fact that there are colored people that are outside and she doesn't understand it. And this is the world that she's always lived in. And I'm just saying what you guys are thinking. And Mrs. Bauer is like, "I'm not thinking it." Bridget's like, "I'm not thinking it either. Like, nobody's thinking it but you. And you really need to calm down." And that's what Miss Bauer tells her, that she needs to stop with her racist ways and that she doesn't want to hear anything else about it. Now, when the doctor goes up to see about Peggy, the sisters are there talking to the Scots. And like I said, the whole thing is just awkward. And I'm sure it is. I'm sure that the Scots probably don't get invited to neighborhoods like that where they are standing there in Manhattan talking to the sisters. And the sisters probably never have, affluent black, upper middle class, affluent black people that are there standing in front of them. So it's just an awkward situation. But anyway, you can tell that it's awkward because the sisters start talking about the doctor's behavior and how they don't condone that at all. And then they go on to talk about how their father was actually involved in one of the Christian schools that I think Peggy used to go to. It was sort of like they were trying to convince them that they're good people. And it's like, we do see that you're good people. I don't know if the Scots are convinced of it, but you could see what was going on there. Um, it was just an awkward situation. All right, so over at the Carltons, we see Gladys and Billy, and they're sitting there waiting for Bertha to arrive because we know that she's on her way to come pick her up. And so she's just, making sure that Billy knows, listen, when my mama gets here, we need to be strong. We need to be a united front, one nation under a groove. We're going to get this done, right? We cannot let her break us and our ideas, and we want to get married. But when she comes in, Bertha's like, I don't want to hear it. Go sit in the car right now. Like, Gladys didn't even get a chance to even express how she was feeling or her thoughts about how she wanted to be with Billy. So Billy's just like, oh, well, we took care of her while she was here, along with his mother, who is, it was just so late when she came, and we were going to call you, but, we just figured it'd be better if she just rested. She was kind of hysterical. We thought we was going to have to call the doctor. She was just so upset. And so the mother Billy's mother starts talking about, the idea of the kids getting married, and Bertha's like, listen, I don't know if you've heard or not, but she's going to marry the Duke. Gladys is not going to marry your son. And so I think Billy's mom took a little bit of offense to that, because she's like, listen, my daddy signed the Declaration of Independence. Great grandfather signed the Declaration of Independence. And, what were your ancestors doing at that time? Just kind of slight shade to Bertha and her ancestors, but Bertha didn't, take the bait. She was just like, "Listen, again, I'm sorry about this, but my daughter is not going to marry your son. She's going to marry the Duke. I gotta go. Bye bye." So they leave out, and I'm just like, you know what? I like Bertha seasons 1 and 2, but this Bertha here, this season 3 Bertha, not feeling her, quite so much. So we'll see what happens with that. But I think Bertha is going to get a rude awakening here very soon. Okay, so back at the sister's house, the doctor lets everybody know that Peggy is still kind of under the weather. She needs to stay put until she gets better. Of course, her daddy's like, nope, I think she needs to go to Brooklyn. Let's go ahead and get her packed up. But then Peggy's mom's like, listen, with the sister's permission, let's just let her stay here and let that be that. So in the meantime, across the street, we see a vehicle pull up, and who is it but George Russell? He is back, ladies and gentlemen, from the Midwest, and he is met by Church, and he's asking, where is Mrs. Russell? I got a meeting with JP Morgan. And Church don't want to get involved and get in the middle of any of that mess. So he's like, listen, I'll let her tell you when she gets back. Anyway, he does have his meeting with JP Morgan, and JP Morgan is pretty much letting him know about the state of all the banks, the financial institutions. They are closing down, the money is running out. And so George goes on to tell him about the venture that he had out west and everything. And he was like, listen, I really wasn't out there for what I told you that I was out there for. And he's like, man, you don't have to, tell me anything else. I already knew that you was out there for the land. I knew it wasn't about, coal or anything like that. You wanted that land. And so he explains to him about his railroad expansion, how he wants to go from New York to Chicago and Chicago to LA. And JP Morgan is like, listen, man, I understand that, but you could not have picked a worse time to start this business venture. I mean, look at the climate of the world today, of the country today. There's no money, banks are closing up, and I know that you don't have all the money right now to fund this. And so he tries to convince him, George tries to convince JP Morgan to go into business with him, and I think that he might take him up on it. So we see what happens with that. In the meantime, the Scotts are headed home, and they're having a conversation about how they were treated at the sister's house. And Mr. Scott is just like, well, it just seemed like they were kind of trying to impress us by talking to us about this story about their father. Like, where did that come from? So yeah, it was a little awkward. I think the whole situation was, but I really want Mr. Scott to cut the sisters a break, because I feel like they are really good people, and they were being genuine during the visit. So, and that's pretty much what Mrs. Scott says. She kind of shuts the conversation down and says, I'm just glad that Peggy is there, and I think she'll be well taken care of. So, shout out to the sisters for that. All right, so over at the Russells, we've got all of them together. Gladys and Bertha just got back from Billy's, and honey, the engagement has made the paper, and Gladys is not a happy camper. She is like, listen, you told me, Dad, that I could marry for love. And he's like, yep. But Bertha's like, no, I'm trying to introduce you to the finer things. You're going to be the most influential, just still running that game or whatever. And Gladys is not here for it. She wants to marry Billy. So they're trying to bring George up to speed. And when Gladys is starting to talk about what happened, you notice that Bertha kind of deflects and says, "Oh well, let's talk about what really happened. Let's talk about how you went gallivanting into the night and ended up at Billy's last night." And he's like, "Wait, what?" And so it's like, well, why did she go over there? This was all on you. She would have never gone over there had you not, try to force her hand to marry this Duke. And so we know that the Duke is supposed to be coming to New York very, very soon. And so with this engagement hitting the paper, it's like, okay, this is really feeling like it's real. It's really feeling like it's going to happen. And so, George is asking questions, but she's just, Bertha has a way of just, well, George, you handle your business there and I'll handle my business here. And she's very much, and just kind of fast talking him, saying, just ever so much just to, kind of get him to calm down a little bit. But I think those games are going to run out for Miss Bertha. All right, so over at the Fanes, we see Aurora, and we know from last episode that Charles had come home and said that he did not want to be with her anymore. He wanted a divorce. So we find out this episode that he has actually moved out of the house and has been staying at the club. So she's sitting there. He walks in the house, don't even speak, don't even say hello or nothing, just walks up, walks in, walks up the stairs, and she just meets him with a whole bunch of, oh my God, honey, you're home. Listen, we have an event coming up and I wish you would answer my letters and I know that you got them and what's been going on. And she's just got so much stuff that she wants to say and so many questions and she's pleading her case and oh, what was me and what am I going to do? And he's just trying to get up the stairs to get his clothes. And so he says, look, I just came here to get my clothes. Next time I will send the valet because I can't do this anymore. He's being super cruel. I mean, you can't just spring something like this on somebody and expect them to be okay, especially this day and age when, the wife is completely dependent on the husband, not only financially, but socially as well. And I know that Aurora does feel like her world is ending. And, if you've fallen out of love with your wife and you met somebody else, okay, all right. But there's a way to do it. There's a way to say it. He's just being an a-hole about the whole thing and he won't even give her the opportunity to say anything. He just wants out and he doesn't want to hear it. So she's just explaining to him, listen, we have this event that's coming up. I can't cancel it. I don't know what to say. It's so, so tiring having to explain that you're not here. It's been weeks and I can't do it anymore. And he's like, yeah, I understand that, but you've got to let it go. I've already told you I wanted a divorce. So you got to get it through your head and you got to try to move on without me. Easier said than done, Charles, but thank you for being understanding about it. I really hope he gets his in the end. I'm not happy about where this is going. I feel bad for Aurora, but you'll be all right, girl. All right. So over at the sister's house, we see the two sisters along with Marion, and they're just sitting there having a conversation. All of a sudden, we see the staff. They come up and they're all lined up, and Agnes is like, "What is going on? Is the staff rebelling against us, Ada? What have you done?" And she's like, "I'm holding my first meeting." So she gets up there and she's like, so funny. She's got this like clipboard thing, and everything is just so like professional. And she's like, listen, I have this pledge, this temperance pledge that I would like for you guys to support me with. And, pretty much it just says that, let me see, because I think I wrote it down. Yeah. The pledge of temperance that they shall not buy, sell, or drink and do their best to prevent others from doing the same. I don't know where this group came from. I mean, I don't think that there is anything wrong with just having, a drink every now and again, special occasion, or if you like to enjoy a beer after work or whatever, as long as you don't, moderation, that's the key. Anything done in moderation is okay as long as you're being healthy and you're being safe. But this whole pledge, Ada's just gone crazy. Everybody that she sees, she's trying to bring it up to them. Hey, I need your support. I need your support. I don't know if like she gets a special prize if she, recruits more people to do this, but she is really asking everybody to do it. And it is so funny. But meanwhile, over across the street, we see the Russell staff and they're downstairs. They're getting excited about the possibility of Gladys becoming a duchess, honey. And they're like, oh my God, she's going to be moving away. She's going to have to take one of us or some of us. And, I think it's just really exciting. What do you think? And what do you think? So everyone's just giving their opinions about what they think. And some people think that that's good. I know Church is like, listen, I think it's great. She's going to be well known. Anything that she touches is going to turn to gold. If she wears something, it's going to be duplicated. I mean, Who wouldn't want to live that life where she probably can't even go to the store without a million people in her face and paparazzi and clicking pit? Well, not back then, but still the same kind of hype, instead of going and living a just a regular, happy, everyday, normal life. Some people need it, some people don't. And Gladys just strikes me as the type that don't. She says it all the time. I don't want to do all those things. I just want to be happy and I want to be in love and I want to love who I love. And then we noticed that the chef, the French chef, I think his name is Bauden, Chef Bauden, is saying that he feels sorry for Gladys. And I'm like, yeah, I do too, man. I really do. And speaking of him, remember last episode, he received a letter. So church asked him, without asking him what was going on with the letter. And he says that that was a notification to let him know that his wife passed away. But he said, he's been separated. So it's not. But anyway, church asked, did he let Miss Bruce know? Because I guess they're still dating. I think they started dating the end of last season. And he said he hasn't let her know yet, but he will let her know. So I don't know what's going on with that storyline, but we'll keep our eye on that. Okay, so downstairs at the sister's house, we see the servant. We see Jack. He's down there and he's still working away on his clock invention. And Bridget is like, listen, man, you got this. Like, why are you going over and over this invention? You got it. You know it, and you know it's good. And he's just so humble. I really, really love Jack, and I'm rooting for Jack. We do hear that he's been invited to go to the meetings with Larry. So good for Larry. He's going to be there to answer any questions that he needs. And so Larry asked him if he has a suit. He said, yeah, but it doesn't fit anymore. So he's like, listen, I'll take you to my tailor and we'll get you a suit. It was interesting to see them have the conversation when they were at the tailors about the kind of suit and how the suit should fit. And I love the way that Larry was trying to teach Jack that sometimes less is more. You don't have to be flashy and have the biggest lapel and the this and the that. You need to just be confident and kind of dress down and let your actions and your words speak for you, not what you're wearing. So I thought that was just great advice. Great, great, great. I hope Larry continues to be a mentor for Jack because I just love the relationship that those two are developing. Also, down there, these sisters are. The sister staff are down there also discussing this no alcohol pledge, right? And Miss Bauer, she's like, look, after a hard day's work, I enjoy a beer. I mean, is that a crime? We work from sun up to sundown, and at the end of the night, there's nothing wrong with me having a beer. And then Bannister's like, listen, Agnes has never given up her wine, right? So we ain't got to worry about that. And Jack is like, well, I feel like I need to, I feel obligated that I need to support, Miss Ada because she was there and she supported me, with my idea with this clock invention. So, the staff are kind of torn about which way they should go, but not Armstrong, honey. She said, I already signed it. And they're just like, what? You signed it already? And I don't know if this is all for one and one for all, but, you know, Ms. Armstrong's like, forget it. I've already signed it and it's done. But the rest of them, not too sure. I think it's ridiculous for Ada to try to convince her staff to do this, but I don't know if this is a power play or what. I noticed they were going back and forth when she was presenting it to the staff, and she pretty much had to pull her card. This is my staff, I'm paying the staff now, but we still don't know who's in charge, and they want Bannister to go and try to see if he can figure it out. Now, upstairs in the sister's home, we see that Peggy is better. We find out that the doctor used to come by Peggy's daddy's pharmacy back when Peggy was in college, and that he was pretty fascinated to see that he was the actual owner of said pharmacy. So he's like, yeah, I don't remember seeing you there. She's like, yep, I was away in college and I really never hardly came you know by the pharmacy during that time. So anyway, Marion walks in, has a paper, and she brings it for Peggy, and you can see that some of her writings are in the paper. And the doctor's like, hey, can I take a look? Can I read it? Seems like the doctor's kind of smitten on Peggy, and Peggy is kind of smitten on this doctor. So we'll see where this relationship goes. I'm excited about it. At least she ain't messing with that married man anymore. So back at the Russells, George and Gladys sit down and they have a talk. And George is trying to convince Gladys to, not just be all about Billy, but just, take a look at all of her options. And that does include Hector, the Duke. And so Gladys is like, listen, you told me that I could marry for love. And he's like, yep, I did say that. And she's like, listen, if he comes to at Aurora's event, can he talk to you then? Will that be a good time? And George agrees. So all is well there. And Gladys is happy for now. Back at the sister's house, the doctor tells the sisters that Peggy's doing better. And we see that Aurora is there for a visit. Hey, girl. So Ada and Agnes start bickering because Bannister comes up, and Ada asks Bannister, hey, what do you think about the pledge? What's the staff feeling about it? And then Agnes is just like, will you please leave them people alone about this pledge? And they start going back and forth. And Bannister just like, okay, enough. The staff needs to know who is in charge. And Ada, she can't even say it. She's hemming and hawing about who's in charge. Agnes is like, I don't really see why anything needs to change. And so Aurora jumps in and says, listen, Mrs. Forte is the one that is in charge. The staff will listen to Mrs. Forte. And I thought, okay, so how does she get to just jump in and make the decision in their household? And then Ada tickled me when she goes, it's nice to have resolution. Or whatever she said, something to that effect. But it's just like, it's so prim and proper and just not Miranda from Sex in the City. But anyway, she asked, this is Aurora, is asking what excuse that she should explain for Charles's absence. Because she's like, listen, it's too late to cancel, and I need to know what to say, because you know that these nosy rosies are going to be all up in my business, and they're gonna want to know, where is my husband? What do I say? And they're like, just say that he's under the weather, and that'll be that. Now, over at the event, we see Miss Astor. She's, just making her way like the true busybody that she is. And she's speaking. The first thing that she says to Aurora is, hey, where's Mr. Fane? And so, of course, Aurora's like, yeah, he's under the weather. And she just kind of gives her a look. She has to get her daughter away from some man that I think she's flirting with, because I think the daughter's married. So her sister ends up interrupting their conversation along with Gladys. And we see that everybody is just kind of kissing up to Bertha, because they now see and they now know that the Duke is coming. And some of the ladies are asking, so where's the Duke going to be staying? And Bertha's like, yeah, he'll be staying with us. And George is taken aback. He's blindsided by the whole thing. And he's like, what? So as they're walking away, he's like, you never told me that. Is that really true? Is that just something? And she's like, we'll talk about it later, George. Just she loves the fact that she's getting all this attention, but she doesn't realize that she's pissing George off. So I just really hope that they can get it together before it's too late. But I don't know. It's not looking good for Miss Bertha. All right, you guys. So we are at the Fane event. We are at the event over at Aurora and Charles's house, and there's a lot of stuff going on. First, we see that Oscar's talking to John Adams, and he's talking to him about all of his woes. And John is like, hey, man, why didn't you call me? I love you. I believe in you. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write a check out, and you're going to take that money and invest it. And by the time I tell everybody about it, you're going to double my money. And so it looks like he does have a friend that is there for him. Shout out to John Adams, who's going to take care of Oscar. Now, also, we see Billy's mom. She's at the event, and she's like, you know what? I need to go try to make nice with Miss Bertha. So she goes up to Bertha. She's like, listen, can we start all over again? I mean, Billy's plan is to speak to George tonight. And this time, Bertha's a little bit more rude. She's like, look, if I didn't say it before, I'm going to say it one more time. My daughter is not going to marry your son. And if Billy keeps this up, then Mr. Russell's going to make sure that Billy never works again in this city. And we're going to disinherit Gladys. How about that? And I'm like, oh my God, you are such a monster, your own daughter. And she's like, gosh, what kind of person are you? She's like, one who gets what she wants. And she's just eating up all this attention, but it's going to come back to bite you, Bertha. I can guarantee that. Anyway, Charles had the nerve to come to the party with his side piece. Oh my God. And of course, Miss Astor was the first one to see them walk in. She goes and she tells Aurora about it. And then Aurora goes up to Charles, pulls him to the side, like, how could you bring that woman into my house? I want her out of here. And she was better than me, honey, but she handled it well, I guess. And Charles was like, well, this is the way it's going to be. She didn't even want to come. I made her come. And I'm like, oh boy, Charles, there is a special place in hell for you, my boy. And yeah, just get ready because that was just flat out cruel. He didn't have to do that. He just didn't have to come if he didn't want to, but now he's just being mean. Um, Now, Billy does go to ask for Gladys' hand in marriage, but he gets cold feet and he kind of rushes away. And the mother goes after him and is like, look, you've already put up with so much with this girl. Let's just leave it alone. In the meantime, we see that Bertha sees Billy going in there. So she tries to head him off, but she was a little bit too late because, he's standing at the door and they're like, can I help you? And he's just blink, blink, stared, and he rushes off. So Gladys, maybe he wasn't the best for you. I mean, we want somebody with a little bit more confidence, somebody that can go in there and talk and say what he wants. And it doesn't seem like Billy is that type. Even though it's definitely not the Duke, I don't think it's Billy either. Okay, so back over at the sisters, we see the Scotts. They're there visiting Peggy, who looks so much better now. And they're talking about a trip that they're going to take to Newport because Mrs. Scott's cousin is interested and excited about having Peggy come up to, maybe hear some of her writings and meet and greet with the people up in Newport that are really, really happy and excited about the work that Peggy is doing. So I think this is going to be the storyline for the doctor, and I just cannot wait to see it. Now, across the street at the Russells after the event, we see that George is again talking to Bertha, and now he's trying to convince Bertha about how Gladys must feel. And, just trying to say, listen, maybe we can be a little bit more open and understanding about Gladys. We want our daughter to be happy. And again, Bertha is not buying what he's selling. Bertha is all about, listen, she needs to do this. This is going to be great for her. Or, Bertha, is it going to be great for you? Which is it? So, the conversation doesn't really go, as planned, according to George. The very next day, they are going to be entertaining the Duke because he's going to be arriving. We see that Larry has invited Miss Marion to come along. And she's over there getting ready. They've been doing a lot this episode. You can tell that they're smitten with each other. But Marion did say that she does want to take some time and just kind of take this one slow. We know each season she's had a love interest, and we really want this one to work. I'm rooting for Larry and Marion, so I really want it to work, but I want them to take it slow. So we'll see about that. But anyway, she's been invited to come over to receive the Duke as well. So they're over there at the Russells and they're waiting for the Duke to arrive. We notice that they're all lined up except for there's no Gladys. And so Bertha's like, hey, go find out where your sister is. So Larry goes, he finds out that Billy's outside waiting. So he goes and grabs Gladys and she goes out and meets with Billy, who pretty much dumps her. Billy is saying, listen, you need to be with somebody that's better than me. But what I really think happened was that it got back to Billy about what Bertha said about if he continues to act this way, then he'll never find another job and Gladys is going to be disinherited. So I think that he's trying to protect Gladys in that sense, but of course he can't say that. But anyway, Gladys is just completely heartbroken. Oh, it broke my heart. She came back in, she fell into her brother's arms, just weeping and sobbing. But anyway, they know that they got to hurry up and get back up because the Duke is arriving. So when they get up, they see the Duke. He comes in, he's greeting everybody, and they're all lined up. By the time he got to Gladys, Gladys looked like she had seen a monster. She just looks, eyes just bucked wide open, and she couldn't even talk. She couldn't even greet him. And we see that there's a lot of people coming in with the Duke. One of them is a lawyer. And so George is like, why a lawyer? As well as Gladys. Everyone's asking, what's up with this lawyer? Why did this guy bring a lawyer? This was not supposed to be that kind of visit. And George is upset because he's like, I thought that you said that you told me everything. And of course, Bertha's deflecting, oh, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about it later. She escorts everybody in. Come on, y'all, let's go. It's time to eat dinner. And so they get the call to go eat, but Gladys can't even move. She's still just standing there shocked. And she's like, Daddy, what is going on? Why is there a lawyer? And George is like, don't you worry about it, baby. I'm going to handle it. And handle it, George, you better do, because Bertha is just doing way too much. And at this point, her daughter's going to be married off real soon. But anyway, that was a great episode. That was the end of it. Thank you so much for watching season 3, episode 2 of the Gilded Age. I will be back next week and we'll do it all again. Please comment down in the comment section. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this episode. If you liked it, give it a like, consider subscribing, and I will see you guys the next time I do it. All right. Bye.